Lesson 22 in Dobson introduces you to the irregular version of the aorist participles that you met in Lesson 20. So if you're comfortable with Lesson 20, Lesson 22 is very little more to think about. What we've got are 3 slides now showing you the patterns of the kind of irregularity you're going to see. In each instance, I've headed the columns with luo just so we've got some comparisons, and then we'll look at the kind of things that can happen. So you'd expect luon and then lusas. Untying, having untied. Instead, various things happen. The first of the things that happens is the stem is going to shorten. So ballon, lambanon and heoriscone become ballon, lambone and heoron. In each case, the stem has shortened and we now have present endings on the aorist. So the aorist-ness is marked by the stem change, not by the ending. So you have a short stem and present endings. It may actually be easier to think about this as that the aorist is the default stem and you do something to it to make it continuous and repeated in the present. So you will regularly see that things like an extra liquid there or the extra syllable "an" there are markers of present verbs. And you'll also see that SK is a marker of iteration. So verbs that have this in are by definition continuous, and the aorist is by definition not, and therefore the aorist cannot have SK in its stem. And so if you see an SK in a present, you are going to lose it in the aorist. So the first pattern of irregularity you're going to see is you shorten the stem and then you use the present endings. Back to our starting point, luon and lusas. The second set of patterns you're going to see are very similar to that. Ginoscone and binone go together. These are called root aorists. What that means is their aorists are actually reduced versions that work on a really short stem and do slightly different things to all other verbs. So you will need to know ginosko and binote very carefully. You'll notice that sigma kappa in there again. That process marker is there, so you know right from the very start that you're going to end up having to lose that. What then happens is you get gnus, genitive gnonta, and bas, genitive banter. So they really are very short stems. Bas is now the same ending as your lusas. So it's the same set of endings, but on a really truncated stem there. And then with iro, you then get aras. This again still has your normal aorist ending, but no sigma. This is typical of liquid verbs. So verbs that have an M, N, R or L in their stem, which handily spells the word mineral, and that might help you think of mineral water. Water is a liquid. These are what we call linguistic liquids. They're all r. They're words that you can continue in your mouth. They're not simple sounds like p, t. Words with liquids in their stems. Liquids do not combine well with sigma. And that sigma will be lost. So you'll have various other possibilities, like you'll notice the iota is lost in there. But the basic thing you'll see is there is no sigma if your stem has entered in a liquid. The last set is you just get a complete change of stem. So let's start off with our luo again. Luon, lusas. You now get a complete change of ending. Change stem. It's like go and went in English. You've just changed the 2 verbs have merged into one and you've switched between the paradigms and they are completely different things. So legon becomes apone, trechon becomes dramone, echomenos becomes elthone, and ferone becomes enenkas. The first 2, legon and trechon, you've just changed stem. With erchomai, you've also changed voice. You've gone from middle to active. And with phero, you've changed stem but maintained the standard aorist endings. What's important is that you learn these as a chart. And I will add to Canvas a list of 50 that are most useful. It's from a classical book, so there are a few things that you need to tinker with, but it's a really useful chart and one or two more that it's worth adding to that. And if you can learn that 50, you will learn both the most common examples but also the basic patterns for the kind of things that are going to happen. Last thing we should do is actually just put in some of the meanings of these so that you have an idea of what you're talking about. Phero is bring, bear, carry. Erchomai, go. Trechon, run. This gives you dram, and that changes to drom, and that gives you things like drome in English. Legon, apone, speak. Iron, Dobson's given you pick up. I might say something like raise. Binon is another way of going, only ever available as a compound, so you will usually see it in grammar books with a line before it, a dash, telling you you're only going to see it in a compound like Anna. Ginoskone, no, and actually that kn is the same as the gn. So no knowledge is the root of gn. And then find, take, and throw. You'll know here your own actually, because think of the word eureka. This is the perfect. We'll look at that soon. I have found it. So there are several hundred irregular verbs in Greek. If you look in the Oxford Classical Grammar, you will find a top 100 and then a second top 100. But they do fall into systematic patterns quite often. And Dobson is introducing you to the main ones of those in this chapter.